Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. So it seems there is some slight new news on the old rumour mill when it comes to DJI as usual and the potential launch of a new drone. Now, whilst absolutely everybody is talking about the potential launch of the DJI Mini 3, which would be the successor to the hugely popular DJI Mini 2, it looks like that DJI might be looking in the complete opposite direction and trying to launch a more budget, consumer directed drone for the cheaper end of the market. Now, if we look at some of the specifications that I have sort of found, and which, to be fair, they are available online, so you can go check them out for yourself, it looks a very, very similar sort of specification to the original Mavic Mini. We're looking at a 2.7K camera and the 12 megapixel photo mode as well. Now, with a couple of little tweaks. Now, one thing I have to stress is these at the moment are just complete rumours, but I've always lived by the old notion there is no smoke without fire, and these have obviously come from somewhere, and apparently one of these cards that you can see on screen now is sort of live from Walmart across in the States. So, you know, like I say, there's no usually smoke without fire, and that tends to lead me to believe that these are possibly true rumours. True rumours? Well, there's one for you to debate. So let's look at some of the specification in more detail then. So firstly, we are promised the 2.7K camera with the 12 megapixel photo mode. The next thing to talk about is that 2.5 mile range. Now, this is quite interesting because we are expecting this to remain a Wi-Fi drone. Now, 2.5 mile range actually relates to the max range that you could achieve with the FCC version of the DJI Mavic Mini, whereas the CE version, which run on 2.4 GHz and 5.8 GHz, was less powered and usually gave us around 2,000 meters. So effectively, even though it says 2.5 miles, again, like I said, that is sort of in line with what the Mavic Mini could do in FCC mode, and in Europe I wouldn't expect to get that sort of range, more like half that, which again was the same with the Mavic Mini. Up to 30 minutes flight time, that is absolutely normal, and we've come to expect that from DJI. So we've got GPS mode as well, which of course it's going to have for flight stabilization. We have Wi-Fi. Well, of course it's Wi-Fi because that's how it connects to the controller, so that makes sense. And this is an interesting one. So it looks like it also has Bluetooth, and I personally think that will be to do with this little button here and using the quick transfer feature. If you haven't seen how to use the quick transfer feature, you can do so using this card. So it's likely it's going to be controlled using the DJI Fly app, which of course controls so many of DJI's drones. Now it controls the original Mavic Mini, the Mini 2, the Mavic Air 2, the Air 2S, and the DJI FPV. So we know what we're getting with the DJI Fly app, and yeah, if this is true and this drone is coming out, it looks like it would be controlled under that app also. And of course, you know, just to wrap this up, you would expect the usual return to home features, of course, you would get on other drones. One thing to note from the photos is it looks to have the same sort of props, which comes on the DJI Mini 2 with these little, let me just get this out, with these little red tips. Okay, now I think that's quite significant because, as far as I'm concerned, apart from the bank angle capabilities on this drone, I think a lot of the extra wind properties or wind resistance properties did actually come from those propellers, which are much, much tougher. Not to mention, we did often get that motor overspeed warning on the DJI Mavic Mini, and that was due to the way the props were actually stored within the case. So these being a little bit tougher and a little bit more sturdy, hopefully that would avoid that little issue that was quite prominent on the DJI Mavic Mini. Again, reverting back to the photos, it very simply looks like it's not going to have any of these front LED lights, and I don't see why it should. I'm very curious to see at what weight this will come in at, because it looks to me, again looking at the specification, like it's possibly going to use the LiPo battery, but of course possibly not going to have some of the features that the Mini 2 does, so that could possibly come in at even lighter than what this does, and this comes in at 238 grams. So we could be in for something really, really interesting there, and lots of scope to be able to add LEDs and add wraps and bits and pieces to customize your drone and still stay within that sub 249. Once again, according to the specification and the picture that we are supplied with, it looks like it's going to come with this controller. Now, I'm not entirely sure how that's going to work. This is why I'm just erring on the side of caution and being slightly reserved, because this, of course, is a OcuSync 2.0 controller. And yes, you know, these technically are a Wi-Fi sort of antenna, but I'm sure DJI have got this sorted out if this is actually coming. Personally, I think that would be a huge upgrade, because one thing I didn't like about the Mavic Mini was that horrible controller. It was so fiddly, and looking down rather than up at the controller will really make a huge difference. I think that's so much more comfortable, but yeah, it is a little bit heavier, but then again, you get better battery life. Some people have suggested this DJI Mini SE, drop in the Mavic name of course, is going to be a DJI response to drones such as the Fimi X8 Mini and the Xeno Mini as well. Personally, from what I've seen, as you know, I do have that Fimi X8 Mini on my channel, and I do have a new video coming out the next day or so, some highlighting more of the features. For me, I'm not entirely too sure about this whole release of this drone, and I'm keeping quite reserved, because if this drone is to try and compete with those drones, certainly it can't really compete with the Fimi X8 Mini in terms of what you actually get for the money that you pay. That Fimi X8 Mini is quite good if it could only sort the gimbal tilt out. DJI are a big manufacturer, and are they going to give the SE more features than Mini 2? Of course they're not going to. So for me, I'm really on the fence. If this is all real and this is true, for me, I think you'd be so much better off with the original Mavic Mini. I do prefer the lithium-ion batteries. I think they deplete and discharge in so much more of a nice way. They're less fickle to try and store. And the drone does absolutely perfectly. When I did my video comparison, many of you actually preferred the Mavic Mini. It was quite incredible, really. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comment section below to all of this. The only thing I can think of is it's very simply a slimmed down entry-level version at a really cheap price. Just to try and get more people flying drones, possibly part of a stock clear out. They've possibly got a bunch of shells, and they're just wanting to create a new product. New products always create buzz and hype, and maybe just clear out some old stock and not really give as much in the way of an improvement, because I certainly don't see how this drone really is, other than the fact that you're possibly going to get a slightly better wind resistance than the original Mavic Mini, and you're possibly going to get this quick transfer tool as well. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. Always interested to hear your thoughts. Thank you very much for watching, and see you again soon.